This is where the truth is revealed. Welcome to the Mark Raymer Show.
This is the time for real wisdom. Lightning round.
If Trump wins, how about bursting into tears and screaming for the next 45 minutes?
Well, America is crying tonight. I'm not sure how much of America, but a very, very significant portion, and I mean literally crying.
Everybody is crying and so upset, and it is the end of their world.
Feels like the end of the world.
We were on Lifetime last night, and I was slowly getting drunk is what happened to me.
How do we explain how this is possible?
How did this happen? Experienced politician versus racist fake gynecologist.
Get your abortions now, because we're going to have to live with it.
You're awake, by the way. You're not having a terrible, terrible dream. Also, you're not dead and you haven't gone to hell. This is your life now. This is our election now. This is us. This is our country.
This is a different Earth today than it was 24 hours ago. It's a different place. Cause it just is different.
The woman who President Obama called the most qualified person ever to run for the White House couldn't break through. The question remains, who can?
Deeper concerns tonight that the world's shining light of democracy has gone dark.
Decency lost last night, and that's what's so hurtful about this.
This was a white lash. This was a white lash against a changing country. It was a white lash against a black president in part. And that's the part where the pain comes.
I kind of push back against the advancement of African Americans, of Hispanics, of women, of Muslim Americans.
It is a mourning moment for those people, and it is a moment filled with fear.
Because I'm on this network and people know my attitudes about things. They come up to me and they're scared, depressed, despair, desperate even, almost clinging to me.
It was a rough night for everybody, I think. We're worried. The people are worried. Okay, he's the president. Now what?
It feels like we're trying to avoid the apocalypse, and half of the country is voting for the asteroid.
Is there a doomsday plan for a time like this? Am I right to ask about a doomsday plan? Do you see this as a doomsday scenario?
So if Donald Trump is democratically elected and your son is serving as a Marine, you wouldn't trust his life under that commander-in-chief? And Kane said, I wouldn't. That's a pretty extraordinary thing to say. If you have a son in the Marine Corps and that you don't trust the commander-in-chief. The people in the military defend the Constitution.
I can't put a happy face on that, and that's my job.
This is the first time throughout this entire race where I'm officially shitting my pants. I genuinely do not understand how America can be this disorganized or this hateful.
How do you govern when your whole campaign was built on the hatred of somebody else?
From slavery to, Nazism, we have faced challenges before to who we are as a people.
Plus the Supreme Court, who knows where that's going to go. So the only checks and balances we have are us, the View.
How are you supposed to be able to handle a country? If you can't handle it's not hard. You learn it in middle school.
She had the best ad campaign, the best ground game. This is a shot against meritocracy, I think, because she merited everything. And the normal way you standardize these things, she did what she's supposed to do to win.
She was Hillary Clinton, the most qualified candidate, the best suited for the job, the best temperament. Now we're hearing not a good candidate.
History is put on hold yet again.
We have no idea who won. And to cover our bases, we taped two different show opens. First up, here's the outcome I'm hoping for. Hillary Clinton is the next president of the United States. But just in case the unthinkable has happened and Donald Trump is our new president, the show open would look something like this. Oh, hello.
That was the psychosis from the left just shortly after Donald Trump won the Zach, am I still on? I had to hit that button. I had the reverb in my ear. It's button 1, correct? Okay, very good. Thank you. That was the psychosis from the left. The night after and the morning after Donald Trump won. That was Tuesday night and Wednesday morning. And I have to be honest with you, I loved every minute of it. Welcome to the program today. Glad you could be with us. I am Mark Raymer. 823-0965 is our number. 501-823-0965. Have a lot of people calling in throughout the show today. Dan Wass is going to call in here in just a little while. R.D. Hopper is going to call in. We have a few other phone calls, and we would love to hear from you. I really thought this nation, I really thought it was over. I thought the election of Hillary Clinton would be the final nail in the coffin, and I cannot tell you, I cannot tell you how happy I was Tuesday night. And I'm equally overjoyed now. We have so much hope in this nation if Donald Trump will just do what he said he was going to do. All right, Dan Wass coming up in the next hour. First hour's in the books. Hour 2 on the way. This is the Mark Raymer Show.
This is where the truth is revealed. Welcome to the Mark Raymer Show.
Good afternoon and welcome to the program. Glad you could be with us today on this beautiful Sunday afternoon. 501-823-0965 is our number. 501-823-0965. For those of you stuck around and listened to the news in between the 2 hours, you heard exactly what I was saying before we took the break. The media is going to try to, and I'm not saying that they're necessarily 100% wrong. We're just going to have to give Donald Trump a little bit of time with an open mind and see what happens. But they already said he's dialing down Obamacare and he's backing off the fence. So liberals are going to try to introduce this propaganda, and they're going to try to create a moment of doubt in your mind. But don't believe any of this stuff until we hear it from Donald Trump. We're only about 45 days from having him in office till the inauguration, and we'll find out very, very quick if he intends to keep his campaign promises. Because I know if he doesn't, the two people that we have on the phone right now, they will not support him again. Dan Wass, R.D. Hopper, how are you, gentlemen?
Hey, happy birthday, brother. It's a great day to be alive, huh?
Hey, thank you. Thank you very much. I'm 55 today. I only feel 130.
Hey, happy birthday, Mark. I'm 50 today. We got the same birthday, and you're just 5 years ahead of me.
Oh, great, R.D. Well, happy birthday to you, too.
All right. Thank you.
I didn't know that. I was with R.D. Tuesday night. We were in on the Dave Ellswick show watching election returns. I was stunned. Dan, I stayed up till 5 o'clock. My Christian learnings tell me not to revel in anybody else's despair. However, I had to do a lot of praying on Wednesday because Tuesday night into Wednesday morning, I sat and watched, and I cannot tell you how happy, how satisfied I was to be watching every liberal talking head. It looked like they lost a loved one. I mean, it really did. It looked like they lost their spouse or a child. The despair, the looks on their faces, it was just priceless.
Well, they were fooled by the media the whole time. And this is an example of the patriots coming back, taking the country back from people who were running it, who had no business running it in the first place.
That is exactly right. And, you know, Dan, R.D., I said something earlier, and I'd like to get your thoughts on this. Donald Trump only received 60 million votes. That is less than Mitt Romney. That's right about the same amount as John McCain, and yet Trump won the election. I really do think we saw a miracle Tuesday night, and I really do believe with all my heart that this was divine intervention, because Obama just 8 short years ago got almost 70 million votes. He received just 4 short years ago 65 million votes. There is no way Donald Trump could cross the finish line first in this race, and I'm I just think in the back of my mind that there had to be some type of divine intervention. Artie, your thoughts first.
Well, I don't so much agree that it's divine intervention. I believe that God gave us a rule book and gave us a process to follow. And if you follow the book and you follow the process, you get the right result. Now, Obama was a real good serpent. He was, I look at him as the Bible tells us to be wise as a serpent and harmless as doves. Well, Obama is a very charismatic person. He pulled out more people to vote than anyone had ever done it. Now, you just look at Hillary Clinton. She does not have the charisma of Obama. She just doesn't have it. And I agree with what Dan said. Americans are sick of the establishments on both sides. The Republicans deserve Donald Trump because they haven't been listening to the voters. The voters on both sides were voting for outsiders. Now, Bernie Sanders hurt Hillary a bunch. A lot of the people that supported Bernie Sanders did not get out to the polls and vote for Hillary Clinton.
No, they didn't.
I think it was people suffering from the decisions they made. And I believe that God put the processes and the system in place to where we reap what we sow most of the time on this earth. And, sometimes, Jesus was crucified for doing what's right, but we always do the right thing, then suffer the consequences. In this country, we do the right thing first and worry about the consequences second. So I think Hillary suffered from her own lies, her own deceit, and I think people can see through Hillary Clinton a whole lot better than they can see through Barack Obama.
I don't disagree with you. I don't, but she didn't get the 65 million votes. She didn't get the 69 million votes. We got very, very lucky that Donald Trump's 60,072,000 votes were good enough to win this election, because in previous elections, those numbers would not have been good enough. Dan, your thoughts?
No.
Well, yeah, he took the states through Electoral College. But what I noticed was the media spent all their time propping her up as the winning candidate and knocking him down as a schmuck. And what their intent, I believe, was to discourage Republican voters, thinking, hey, this guy doesn't have a chance.
Right.
So we're not going to go out and vote. But what happened was it fired up the Republican side, the Republican voters, and it gave the Democrat voters, the Hillary supporters, a false sense of security, thinking that she had it in the bag. And they didn't come out. They didn't come out in numbers like they were expected to have come out.
Exactly.
They're actually 6 million votes short of Barack Obama's 2012 turnout.
That's right. They are. That's right. That's exactly right. And there's been some publications delve down into the numbers, and it looks like black people didn't show up to support Hillary, and young people, the millennials, didn't show up to support Hillary. But the divine intervention part, do you realize that they could have run Joe Biden? They could have even run Bernie Sanders, and we're not having this conversation right now. Both of them, both of them would have got over 60 million. That's why I think it's just a perfect storm for this to happen. They nominated the one person in this country that Donald Trump could beat, and I am so glad that it happened like this. But I think God is giving this nation, God is giving his children one more chance to get it right. And if we screw it up this time, I don't know whether we can depend on his grace again.
You might be right.
Well, he's gave us a lot of second chances if you look through the mistakes since our founding fathers. But this is something, people say they're scared and will wait and see what Donald Trump does. I'm as scared as the establishment, the Republican establishment and Democrat that we voted against and how much power they still have. Look at Mitch McConnell. You played a clip of him saying that they were going to change Obamacare.
Yeah.
And if you look at...
Did you hear the words that he used? That was very political right there. He didn't say repeal. He didn't. That was a very political statement.
Oh, that scares me to death. You look at Paul Ryan in abetterwayspeaker.gov, and he says that all Americans are going to have health care no matter what their situation, and that it's going to be better than Obamacare. We don't want socialism. We want capitalism.
Yeah, we want the free market
I'm more scared
system.
right now of Mitch McConnell and Paul Ryan than I am of Donald Trump right now. I hope he stands up to them, and we try capitalism for a change.
Dan, let's talk about an issue close to your heart. Dan is the author of the outstanding book, Good Gun, Bad Guy. Dan, take a second and tell our listeners where they can go find a copy. This is an outstanding book. We've given copies away here on the show. Dan has been nice enough to send us some books, and our listeners just absolutely loved it. But, Dan, I want to talk to a little bit about supposedly the Trump administration. They say they are going heavy on our constitutional rights, the biggest one being keeping and bearing arms. They are going to fight tooth and nail for this. Tell me your thoughts on that.
Well, my thoughts and my hope are that we get a few things. We want state-to-state reciprocity with concealed carry,
right?
And we want to end gun-free zones on military bases. These are just a couple of initial things that we're hoping to get through. The legalizing of silencers. What's so bad about protecting your hearing? We don't understand it. Somehow silencers have gotten a bad rap. There's a whole list of things, green tip ammo, stuff that has been banned and restricted unnecessarily.
Right.
But I think when you talk about the Second Amendment, I think one thing we have to remember, and I've talked about this before, is that the Second Amendment is a right. It's not a privilege. So what happens is liberal policymakers want to restrict guns. They want to go all the way around guns and ammo and every other thing they can to restrict the use of guns because they know they can't take away the right. A right is not given to us by man. A right is something inherent, and they know they can't take that away. So that's where the restrictions come in on usage of things. How many rounds can I have to a magazine, and all the other little nonsense that they try to inflict on us. I talk a lot about this stuff in Good Gun, Bad Guy, and just to get back to what you mentioned before, it's goodgunbadguy.net. I hope everyone checks it out. The book is primarily about the lies and the false narrative and the rhetoric and all the divisive manipulation that the media and anti-gun radicals insert into the conversation. Now, luckily, I hope we're not going to have to deal with too much of it anymore because they seem to be kicking and screaming now because they don't have the power that they thought they did. So I think everything's going to start changing now, but it's goodgunbadguy.net.
And it's an outstanding read. I can tell you that. I've read the book. It is tremendous. And if you think that we're just blowing you full of sunshine here, they will take away your guns at the first drop of a hat. I hope everybody realizes, and this is something that I didn't realize till about a year ago, and I've been doing this for a long time. If you have to take government assisted living, meaning the government subsidizes your rent, maybe not 100%, but people that live in the projects, people that live in government housing, when you sign your deal to move in there, you give up your right to own a firearm.
Exactly. You signed away all your rights and you have to resort to the privileges that they allow you.
Exactly. The government is granting rights now, and they will do this because there's a track record of it. There is a track record of it, and that would be one of the places that you would need a gun for protection in that type of atmosphere. And yet the government doesn't think enough about its people to allow them to arm themselves, to defend themselves. And, RD, they will, if you don't think it'll happen, it's just we have track record, we have data, we have evidence to the contrary.
Right. There's 2 points that I'd like to make, and I appreciate what Dan said. You guys brought 2 things to my mind. One thing that's near and dear to my heart is you cannot have freedom unless you have economic freedom. If you do not have freedom from the states to depend on the money from the federal government, then the federal government controls your school system, it controls your colleges, it's going to control every aspect of your state. So when those people are signing away their rights they're doing it because they don't have the economic freedom. We teach our teenagers, you don't have freedom to do what you want to do until you get your job and have your own money.
Exactly, Artie. I totally agree. Money is leverage.
That's exactly right. So if we want to be free from the government, we have to be independent. Another tool they're using us, they're overtaxing us and trying to get it to where we're broke, where we do not have the money to fight them or to lay down. So we're totally dependent on them for our livelihood. So the second point, real quick, that I love Dan made is inherent rights. Inherent rights. If you look at our Declaration of Independence, if you look at the Constitution, we have inherent rights. Those inherent rights come from God. And until this country goes back to those original documents and what Dan said and says, this country is founded on God and godly principles, and the God that wrote the New Testament and the Old Testament, the Father of Jesus Christ, and that's the foundation. This country is going to be lost as a goose, and we're going to continue to have these problems. So we need to live frugal lives, to have the freedom to make our own decisions, and we need to tell our Republican leaders that we want you to push the message that our rights come from God and nobody has the right to take them away from us.
Guys, let me ask you a question.
Exactly.
What's the damage to the Republican Party if Mitch McConnell is still going to be a pain in the rear end? Donald Trump doesn't get this stuff through, and the reason why is because these liberal what's going to be the damage to the Republican Party? They lost seats both in the House, in the Senate. They only lost 2 seats in the Senate, which is great because for Supreme Court judges, and we'll talk about that on the other side of a break. But if Mitch McConnell, if the liberal establishment Republicans don't, first of all, let me ask you both a question. Do you think Donald Trump has a mandate from the people from this election?
Dan, you want to go first?
One thing I can say. Go ahead, Artie. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. Oh,
okay.
Hey, go
One
ahead.
thing I can say about Donald Trump that I've learned. I've been following this guy since the 90s, and I know that everything he said he was going to do, he does, and I think he has. I think he has a heavy influence. He'll find a way to influence and work with these people to make the right things happen. I believe that just because I know, and I've watched, and if you watch this election right from the very beginning, he told you what he was going to do, and he told you how it was going to happen, and nobody believed him, and everything he said happened, and it's amazing. That's what you say. Talk about the divine intervention. You know, just to watch that whole process and watch him operate was amazing to me. But I knew he would do it. I somehow believed that he would do it. So I think he's going to have an influence when he gets in.
Okay.
I hope that answered your question, Mark.
Artie?
Yes. Well, hey, it should be a mandate from the people. There were 16 other Republicans to choose from, and the American people chose Donald Trump because they did not trust the other 16 of them to think for themselves and to be able to listen to the people and buck the establishment. The reason we have Donald Trump is because the Republicans haven't been listening to the people.
Exactly.
They've been listening to the establishment. So if we pick him over 16 other established Republicans, I think that's a mandate. And I think Donald Trump, we've seen him try to be manipulated on national television to say that he would accept the election or he would accept the outcome. And we saw what we wanted to see. We saw a man that would not be manipulated. So,
and what I really meant by that is Mitch McConnell won't build a fence. Paul Ryan, John Boehner before him won't build a fence. The Republican Party is an open borders policy. However, it's like what Dan said. This man has run for a year and a half. He had made some, I don't think there were all that disparaging comments about not letting in Muslims until they could be vetted. I think that's just common sense. He made an accurate statement when, Mexico is not sending us their doctors and their lawyers. We're getting unskilled criminals a lot of the time. But the rhetoric that he used, the American people elected him knowing full well what he has said over the last year and a half, knowing full well that they want to reduce regulation. They want a border fence. They want jobs brought back. They want the tax code changed. They want the education system changed. They want Obamacare repealed. I think if Mitch McConnell or any of these milquetoasted Republicans try to get in his way, that's not going to work out for Mitch McConnell and these guys. Would you agree?
The people knew what Donald Trump was saying. Whether no matter how the media twisted it, the people knew. And what we're really seeing here is people who want traditional American values to come back. I mean, what happened to our traditional American values? What's wrong with hard work to earn your way? Why do we not, teach the Constitution and the Bill of Rights to our kids? Why don't we say the Pledge of Allegiance, in schools? Why don't we have family dinners anymore? These are traditional things that are part of our red, white, and blue. And we haven't seen that stuff. At least we've seen the left try to minimize that sort of thing. I think what happened, the American people came back and they said, no, it's not working like this. We want our America back, and we want to get back to these traditional American values because that's what works.
I could not agree with you more, guys. Let's take a short break, and then we'll get back on this. We will talk. We'll talk about the education system. We'll talk about repealing Obamacare. And like I said, during these news breaks, everyone, don't fall for the propaganda that you might hear from liberal media outlets saying that Donald Trump has recanted on Obamacare or he's talking about minimizing the fence or what have you. Don't let them divide us this way, because these are going to be divisive issues, and they're going to do this for the 45-day period that he has before he actually gets into office, can enact some of these things. We're just going to have to keep an open mind, and we're going to have to wait 45 to 60 days from now to see what he actually does when he first gets in there. So I think we all need to have an open mind. I think we need to pray that he's going to do exactly what he said he was going to do. And I do think he shows up in Washington, D.C. with a mandate, because the American people knew what he was all about when they put him in office. 26 minutes past the hour. This is the Mark Raymer Show. Last time we played this song, we actually got phone calls right after requesting music. I think Zach's sitting there laughing. They thought we were a radio station. We are joined by Dan Wass and R.D. Hopper. Dan Wass, the author of Good Gun, Bad Guy, an outstanding book. R.D. Hopper, the owner and operator of Sonny's Auto Salvage. Give me your thoughts. I think the most important outcome of this election could be the fact that Donald Trump, or hopefully Donald Trump, will get his Supreme Court nominees on the Supreme Court. R.D., let's start with you, and then Dan, we'll go to you. How important is the fact that we get somebody like Ted Cruz or Mike Lee or somebody, a strict constitutional conservative on the court?
It's imperative, as you'll hear me say over and over, I think the most important thing about a man is what is his source of authority for right and wrong. And it's not the Supreme Court judge's job to reinterpret the Constitution. That it's their job to go back and look at the primary inference when a decision was made and look at what the intent was. And they are rewriting the intent of the Constitution and our forefathers. And I think we need men that use God's word as their source authority for right and wrong, because I'm a firm believer that if you study history and you study the men that wrote the founding documents and you read the founding documents themselves, I think it's very clear for their source of authority. And I think that's been the strength of this country all along, is because we know what our foundation is, and we're not afraid to stand on it.
Dan, let me ask you this. We know that any Supreme Court nominee can be passed with a simple 51 member majority vote. It's called the nuclear option if you don't go through the 60 votes to invoke cloture. Harry Reid did this back when he was Senate Majority Leader. to get judges on the D.C. circuit and to get circuit court judges. Should the Republicans, if they don't have the 60 votes to invoke cloture on any one nominee, should the Republicans just go it alone and put conservative Supreme Court judges on the bench?
Well, that's a good question. And my gut is to say yes, just because the most important thing to me is that we uphold the Constitution. And I believe, people like Mike Lee, Ted Cruz would uphold the Constitution. And, because if we don't get the right people in there, we could have one major, case that sets a precedent that sends us in the wrong direction. So I don't know, Mark. That's a tough question, but that's my gut.
I just think that's where we have to start in order to drain the swamp, guys. We have to start with one of these bodies of. We either have to start with Congress, the Senate, the Oval Office, or the judiciary. We might as well start at the judiciary, and because you could have Donald Trump might have to nominate as many as 4 Supreme Court judges. And if we know that is secure for the next 30 to 40 years, and we can take our eyes off that and turn our eyes onto something else, then we can get a lot of things fixed. But if we're constantly having to go back and look at a left-wing judge, I just think we need to go ahead and take care of this problem right now to where we can go on to other problems. RD?
I could agree. If you look at history, I believe that it's always good to negotiate and try reasoning first.
Exactly.
But if you're on solid ground and you know the foundation that you stand on and you're confident in your right, then I don't oppose using force at that point or doing it the best way you can. And there's a legal procedure to get that done. And we reason and we state our case, and if we can't get the votes to do it the one way and we're confident that we're right, then we go ahead and do it with the votes that we have.
Well, it's legal to do it with
then we can flex our muscles at that point.
It's legal to do with 51 votes. And Dan, would you encourage that on Obamacare or anything else that needs to be cleaned up? These executive orders, would you endorse doing that as far as a 50? It's legal in the Constitution. The Constitution says nothing about this 60 vote requirement. In fact, 25 years ago, it used to be 66 votes. That's just a rule that they have in the Senate that means absolutely nothing. And it's just for collegiality and brotherhood, I guess, in the Senate between the two parties. But I personally don't care about the brotherhood between.
Cronyism.
Exactly. I would use the 51 vote threshold on everything that I needed to get overturned. What say you?
Well, the Democrats wouldn't hold back on that.
No,
if
they've already done it.
So I agree with Artie. I mean, we negotiate and we negotiate first, and then we flex our muscles if necessary to do the right thing for the people.
I would agree with that sentiment 110%. Dan, I guess you. How did things turn out in New York? I know Donald Trump lost New York, but was it a landslide like we thought? Did he lose by 15, 16, 17, 18 points?
We didn't expect. It's terrible coming from New York because we didn't expect him to win at all. I don't tell you the truth, Mark. I don't know the numbers. I'll have to go back and look.
Well, that's okay.
And as a matter of fact, when I saw Pennsylvania and then I saw Ohio and I started seeing these states turn, it was such a relief. I'm like, wow, what is going on here? This is it. This is the thing we've all been praying for. And so it's just great. Whether I don't know what the numbers were for New York, but I know that we're celebrating. And I tell you, we couldn't be happier up here. Being New Yorkers, even though we're a blue state. Upstate New York is definitely not.
It's
and
red.
I hate the idea.
You get out of New York
City
and New York, the state of New York, Western New York, it's red.
Hey,
exactly. And we hate the
I
idea
know you're
that
from
New
York.
City, right. Well, people think that when you say New York, we're from New York City, but we don't like, I have a lot of friends down in New York City, but we don't like the idea that New York pretty much dictates the state's, direction as far as votes and things like that. So we don't like it at all. But that's why the Trump win was such a great thing for us. We're all celebrating. As a matter of fact, I just want to give a quick shout to my friends from Bama Cary. Those guys are in your state now. They drove from Alabama. They're hanging out with my friend Jan Morgan. They're on the road. They're driving loud bikes. They're packing pistols, and they're patriots, and they're on a mission to make America great. So I just want to give a quick shout out. I hope you don't mind that, Mark.
Outstanding. No. Outstanding. Great to have them here in the state of Arkansas. I hope they like barbecue, and we've got some great food here for them.
Well, I know they're visiting the Jan's Gun Cave, and they're going to be doing some shooting today. And it's great to see people just really enjoying this win, and it's kind of disturbing to watch the other side crying and all the nonsense that they're all the kicking and screaming that they're doing. But we know that we had a win, and we're just absolutely loving it.
Yeah, because I think most of us thought we were in for a just a horrible night Tuesday night, and it was so refreshing to see Democrats actually act on principle, and about 9 million of them stay home and allow the election of Donald J. Trump. Now, I only hope that he goes in there and does exactly what he says. And Dan spoke to that earlier. Dan says that he's followed him much longer than I have followed him, and Donald Trump does seem to be a man of his word. And let's hope that's the case, because this nation is in trouble. And if it doesn't get fixed, guys, I watched the presser with Obama and Trump, and I have never seen Obama look that defeated in my life. The man's face, you could tell he was miserable. He looked defeated. He looked like he knew that his legacy was about. They always talk about this. Other than Obamacare, we've never had this many, 95 million people out of the labor force. This guy does not have a great legacy, and I guess Obamacare was the only positive aspect. If you call it a positive aspect. But once Donald Trump goes through that, you're going to have to go back and look at the history books to find out that this guy was even president of the United States.
Yeah, I hope so.
Yeah, go ahead.
I hope the legacy is erased here real shortly of the socialism and the using his the order of the president as a dictatorship instead of a president. But Dan, I was just going to tell you, I just flew into Syracuse 3 weeks ago, and everybody was talking about deer season and their four-wheelers and getting their Ithaca shotguns out, getting their Ithaca deer slayers out. And I saw a hill not far from Syracuse where we were at and drove up on the hill, and I saw a guy had a gun shop built on the side of his house trailer with plywood, and he had about 200 guns in there. He is a very much constitutionalist, and I saw about 50 Donald Trump signs. So I was very proud to see that all of New York is much like Arkansas. We love our freedom, and we love our ability to exercise our freedom to participate in gun sports and protect our family. So I was inspired.
Yeah, it is great up here. We love it. And anytime you're up here and you want to go to the range, you just look me up.
I'll be back up there next year, so I'll let you know ahead of time.
Western New York is very conservative, but it's like everything else that we saw Tuesday night on those maps. You look at the state of Pennsylvania, other than Pittsburgh and Philadelphia, the rest of it was red. There might have been a assorted county here and there, but the rest of it was red. Florida, the same way. You look at the entire country on an electoral college map, you've got New York, you've got the East Coast, they're blue. The West Coast is blue. Minnesota is always going to be blue. But then the rest of it was a beautiful shade of red. I've said this for 7 years. Dan, RD, we allow 20% of this nation to rule over us. And that's what it is. These nut jobs on the left add up to about 20% of our population, and we let that 20% dictate to the rest of us. It's over.
Yeah, and you know what, Mark? You made a point. You reminded me of something. If you look at the blue on that map, and then you take another map and you look at the high violent crime rate areas, you can lay those over top of each other, and you got a carbon copy. You know, the idea that gun, they call it gun violence. I hate to even use the term because Mark, you and I have talked about this, but that's the hypocrisy. Those are in the Democrat-run cities where you have the most gun restrictions. You have the highest crimes.
They're killing
and
zones.
When you look at that map that we saw on the 8th, it's a carbon copy of it. So the people realize that. I mean, maybe it took a while, but it took 8 years of punishment. But we learned it and we figured it out, and that's why we that's why we overturned it.
Baltimore, Miami, Detroit, they're all Cleveland, Washington, D.C., they're all Democratic-run cities, every one of them.
And have the highest violent crime rates.
Exactly.
And on top of that, have the most strict gun restrictions.
Exactly. Look what happened in Chicago until they gave them their guns back. I mean, it turned into a killing field, and nobody could protect their homes. Their home invasions went through the roof because the crooks knew that the homeowner did not have any weapons behind that door, and they weren't scared to do home invasions. That's why home invasions in this nation has dropped precipitously over the last 2 decades, because they know the American people are armed, and they will not go in your house anymore if they have any question on to whether you're there or not. They have to be 100% sure you're not there before anybody does a home invasion. And that's because, RD, that's because we're all armed now.
You got that right. We don't, like Dan said, Hillary said that we had a gun epidemic, like guns are running up and down the street shooting people. We don't have a gun epidemic. We have a morality epidemic in this liberal education system that are teaching our kids that socialism and the government is the answer to all our problems. That's the problem. The guns aren't the problem. The problem is what they're indoctrinating people with.
No, and I think the good Lord gave us a chance to get our families right, to get our society right, and to get right with God. I really do, and I hope that we take advantage of this opportunity. Dan, take a second real quick here and let everybody know where they can go to purchase Good Gun, Bad Guy, because it is an outstanding read.
Oh, thanks, Mark. They can go to goodgunbadguy.net and or .com, whichever, or you can find it on Amazon. But it's Good Gun, Bad Guy: Behind the Lies of the Anti-Gun Radical.
Outstanding. You will absolutely love this book. RD, take a second and tell us a little bit about Sonny's Auto Salvage.
Hey, we enjoy capitalism at Sonny's Auto Salvage. You know, we buy total loss cars that are wrecked out that we're running good every day. And we provide jobs and take those cars apart and sell parts and give people a cheaper alternative to fix their car, so they don't have to be making car payments all the time. Maybe they can take that money and spend it to help somebody instead of making car payments. So Sonny's Auto Salvage just benefits. We just had Veterans Day, and I'd just like to shout out and give thank you to all our veterans, the husbands that fought and the wives that served. And we're just enjoying the opportunity to be in America and exercise the freedom that we have, and appreciate Dan and what he's doing, and I look forward to reading his book.
Thanks, RD. We're right back at you.
You'll enjoy it, RD. Guys, I appreciate you. Appreciate you giving us part of your Sunday afternoon. God bless you both. I appreciate the work that each of you do, and keep up the good work and stay in the fight.
Thanks, fellas.
Right. Thank you, Mark.
All right. Thanks, guys. And RD was right. We want to say a happy Thanksgiving or happy Veterans Day to everybody that served. Thank you very much for your service. Unfortunately, we've had a lot of Americans that made the ultimate sacrifice for this great nation. Hopefully, through God's grace, we'll be able to restore the nation to greatness again. All right, 48 minutes past the hour, 96.5 FM, The Answer. All right, we are back. Appreciate Dan Wash joining us today. R.D. Hopper. You can find Dan's outstanding book, Good Gun, Bad Guy, at goodgunbadguy.net or .com. You can also find it on Amazon. R.D., great friend of the program, great sponsor of the program. Sonny's Auto Salvage. They only buy the best auto parts. R.D. is one of the most honest human beings I've ever met. Honest business, honest man, great place to do business. Sonny's Auto Salvage. All right, let's hope we can all just pacify ourselves for another 30, 45 days, 60 days. We'll see what Donald Trump is going to do. He's always been a man of his word. Let's hope he keeps his word. Here's Johnny Cash and Ragged Old Flag. All right, finally, we go back to Saturdays next week. Been wanting to go back to Saturdays for 7 weeks now. Next week, 2 p.m. to 4 p.m. on Saturdays, our normal time. So I want to thank you for being here. God bless you. Thank you for listening. I am Mark Raymer, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend.